Pledge of Unity, Vizier of the Scorpion, Ashiok Dream Render. I'm a big fan of this new Ashiok. It reads, spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. It's basically just Stranglehold in blue-black for 3 mana. I'm sold. And our rare, Dread Horde Butcher. Not exactly an all-star. Jiang Yangyu, Wildcrafter. Jace's Triumph. Flux Channeler. And the rare, Plane-Wide Celebration. A swing and a miss. Interplanar Beacon, Tyrant's Scorn, and Tibalt, Rakish Instigator. I think Tyrant's Scorn is kind of interesting. It's a modal spell, which I'm always a fan of, and I think both modes are relevant in a multitude of circumstances, but that's about it from this pack. And the rare, Awakening of V2 Ghazi. Interestingly enough, this can kill an opponent if you have an infect creature, most likely Inkmoth Nexus as one of your lands. So, who knows? Tibalt's Rager, Eternal Taskmaster, and The Wanderer. I think this one is pretty interesting. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control. Now, it is other permanents, so it kind of just blanks 5 damage when it comes down, but it also reads, -2, exile target creature with power 4 or greater. So maybe you get 2 uses out of it. Who knows? And the rare, Mobilized District. This is probably really good in limited, but I don't think it's very good in our format. Tibalt, Rakish Instigator. Price of Betrayal. Mowu, Loyal Companion. Big fan of the good boy over here, but these other two and are rare. Storev, Devkarin Lich. I'm actually pretty interested in this one. I don't exactly know how I want to build it though, so if you have any ideas, let me know. Death Sprout, God Pharaoh's Statue, and Dovin Hand of Control. Wow. 3 killer uncommons in this pack. Death Sprout, removal and ramp. What more could you want? God Pharaoh's Statue is a little high on the curve, but spells your opponents cast cost 2 more to cast is a really powerful effect. And Dovin Hand of Control is just a Thalia type effect, and then it also reads -1 until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to and by target permanent and opponent controls. So that could see some play. And the rare, Soul Diviner. Again, another interesting one, but I don't have as strong feelings about this one. Dreadmulkin, Gideon's Triumph, Angrath, Captain of Chaos. I don't think any of these are very playable in EDH. And the rare, Parhelion 2. Yep. There were actually a couple notable commons in this pack. Return to Nature is 1 green for an instant, and it reads choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, and exile target card from a graveyard. This makes Naturalize literally unplayable. What were they thinking? And the other one is Kaya's Ghost Form, a 1 black enchantment aura that reads when enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. This means you can go infinite with Boonweaver Giant. Ajani's Pridemate, Eternal Taskmaster, and Saheeli, Sublime Artificer. This one's pretty interesting. Again, all of the Planeswalkers do something that we've never seen before, right? They've got the static ability, but this one is pretty unexciting. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. If you know how to use that to any sort of ability, really, let me know. And our rare. Oh, it's actually a foil, but it's an Arlen's Wolf, unfortunately. And then Krenko, Tin Street Kingpin. Another one that I'm not too impressed by. Bond of Passion, Rescuer Sphinx, and Cruel Celebrant. I really like Cruel Celebrant. It's another Blood Artist or Zulaport Cutthroat effect that triggers off of Planeswalkers dying. Pretty interesting if you ask me. And our rare, Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. He's maybe really good in some sort of Abzan or Mardu creature deck. He gives creatures and planeswalkers you control lifelink, so maybe him and Gideon can team up a little bit.
Eternal Skylord, 10th District Legionnaire, and Vraska Swarm's Eminence. This is interesting. 10th District Legionnaire is actually amazing. For those of you that know me, you know that I play Annex and Cymede, and this is exactly the kind of effect that you want in Annex and Cymede. First of all, it's a 2/2 haste for 2, which is fine to begin with. But second, it's got an effect that synergizes well with the heroic theme. This is totally playable at Annex and Cymede. It's better than a lot of the stuff I already run. Let's see what's going on with the rare. Tomic Distinguished Advocist. This one's really interesting, actually. I've had a lot of people ask me what I thought about this card in CEDH, and I'm not huge on it, actually. I find that its effect doesn't hit what I want it to hit. It's like, at the end of the day, it's a 2/3 flying for 2 with some upside, but the upside isn't really super relevant to most of the games that I play. Let's see what's going on here. Jaya Venerated Fire Mage, Bond of Revival, and Challenger Troll. Nothing really worth talking about here, I don't think, unless you're playing Jaya Tribal, maybe. And, ooh, a Dreadhorde Arcanist. I like this card a lot. This slots right into my Nin deck. It lets you recast tutors, lets you recast cheap bounce spells. It does everything that I want it to do. And on top of that, it's got a big booty, which means I can Nin it for cards. Notables in the commons, Bloomhulk, which sounds like a CEDH deck, but is actually a bad common. Moving on to the uncommons, what do we got here? Death Sprout, Dovin's Veto, and Obnixilis the Hate Twisted. Dovin's Veto obviously is insane. This card's making waves in every constructed format. EDH is no exception. It's a strict upgrade to negate. I can't say enough good things about this card. If you are playing blue and you're playing white, you should be playing Dovin's Veto. What do we got for the rare? Awakening of V2 Ghazi. This card's an instant. What? Is it good? Maybe not, but you can get them with it, I guess. What do we got here? Uncommon. Cyclops Electromancer, Pledge of Unity, Firemind Vessel. Pledge of Unity I actually really like a lot. I used to play a lot of Proliferate with +1/+1 counters. That was under Vorl of the Hokblade, but you could play it in Selesnya with any number of commanders. Pledge of Unity slots in there really nicely. It can lead to some massive blowouts in combat, especially. And the rare? Ajani the Greathearted. This is a rare planeswalker. Invade the City, Flux Channeler, and Teo the Shield Mage. I would say if you're playing anything that has to do with Proliferate or any kind of counter, you probably want to be playing Flux Channeler. This is probably one of the best Proliferate cards ever printed. In the rare slot, we've got Neheb Dreadhorde Champion. I have to say, I think every time they've printed a card with Neheb on it, I really, really like it for EDH. This is no exception. It's a cool card. I might build around it. I might rather slot it into Annex and Cymead. Evolution Sage, Gleaming Overseer, and Ugin's Conjurant. I know I just said that Flux Channeler was one of the best Proliferate cards ever printed. Evolution Sage might actually be the best Proliferate card ever printed. I like this card more than Atraxa, if I'm being 100% honest with you. It's so easy to trigger landfall. It's so good. The other two, not so much. What do we got in the rare slot here? Nickel Bolus Dragon God. Holy. For a Planeswalker in a set full of Planeswalkers, this effect is crazy. If you're playing any kind of Super Friend strategy, or if you're playing against Super Friend strategy, Nicol Bolas Dragon God is where you want to be. This card is insanely difficult to cast, but I think the juice is worth the squeeze. Neoform, Devouring Hellion, and Ashiok Dream Render. This one has a couple good uncommons. Neoform is obviously great. With the amount of mana dorks that get played in EDH and CEDH, Neoform is awesome. It actually gets you right into Incubation Druid with a counter on it, which is so cool. Ashiok, it's Stranglehold. It's in better colors, and it's got some upside for 3 mana. I can't complain. In the rare slot, Storev Devkarin Lich. I do like Liches. I'm not a big fan of this one. It seems like a really weird card to put in Golgari. I don't know what to do with it, to be honest. No clue. Merfolk Skydiver, Rally of Wings, and Huatli Sun's Heart. Not really a whole lot going on here. Huatli slots into Doran decks, any of these butt-fighting decks, I guess you call them. But if that's not what you're doing, that's probably not what you want to do. So, and the rare Bolus' Citadel. Oh, this card is so cool. It goes infinite with Sensei's Divining Top and Aetherflux Reservoir. It goes infinite with like a million different things. It's so cool. Paying life, cheating mana costs, everybody always says it, is one of the most powerful things you can do. This card is great. Nissa's Triumph, Prison Realm, and Jace's Triumph. Nissa's Triumph, I actually like this card a lot, I think. If you are playing Nissa's in your deck, I think you should play this. Being able to pull 3 lands out of your deck, any 3 lands, if you're playing Golgari, you could get Gaia's Cradle, Urborg, and Cabal Coffers. That seems crazy to me. What do we got in the rare slot here? Oh, there's a foil in this pack. We've got Teferi Time Raveler. This card is so good. I play Bears and Cars. It's an Azorius Hate Bears deck that uses them to crew vehicles. I think this slots right in. Being able to lock people out with stuff that you're already doing is so great. Azorius is really good at breaking this static ability, using things like Knowledge Pool, anything that combos with the original Teferi creature. Let's see what we got for the foil. Foil Liliana Dread Horde General. I know I'm only going second here, but I feel like I probably just won the night. I'm going to call it right here, winner.
So in my pack 1, start the uncommons, we got Cruel Celebrant, Heartwarming Redemption, Kaya, Bane of the Dead, and for the rare, Finale of Glory. I think the Finale of Glory, it can be pretty cool if you're playing like a mono white sort of deck. Just even at a couple like 4 or 5 mana, you get a bunch of tokens. And if you have nothing else to do late game, make a bunch of tokens and angels, because it makes the 2/2 soldiers plus 4/4 angels if X is 10 or more. So the uncommons in pack 2, we've got Mayhem Devil, Bond of Insight, Narset, Harder of Veils. I actually think there's a couple of really interesting cards for uncommons. Mayhem Devil looks really, really good in like the Judith shell when you're playing. You can play Mardu Blood Artist effects. So every time, so it's whenever a player sacrifices a permanent. So not just your opponents and not just you. It deals 1 damage to any target. So you can start pinging people and other creatures. And then Narset, Harder of Veils. Her static ability is each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. We've seen a lot of these effects, but they're asymmetrical. This is one of the ones that is asymmetrical, so it'll work a lot better in sort of a pseudo Leovold replacement if you want to bring back Teferi Puzzle Box locks. And in the rare slot, we've got 2 cards. One of them must be a foil. First foil we have is Jaya's Greeting. She says hello, and then burns your face off. And in the rare, we've got Widespread Brutality. This is kind of a pseudo Rakdos board wipe, assuming your army's big enough and no one else is playing armies. So yeah, it might have some potential. I think the uncommons are better. So our next pack of uncommons, we've got Prison Realm, Gideon's Triumph, Arlen, Voice of the Pack. I think Prison Realm's kind of neat. It's another O-Ring effect, which are always sweet to have, so you can play them in Enchantment Zur type decks. Except this one hits a Planeswalker or a creature, and you also get to scry one when it enters the battlefield, which is kind of nice. And for the rare slot, got another foil. This one is a foil Ugin's Conjurant. It's a pretty okay card. And the rare, we've got Silent Submersible. For this pack's uncommons, we've got a D-Spark, a God Pharaoh's Statue, and a Kasmina Ignatic Mentor. Nothing too spectacular with these uncommons. Let's see what we've got for a rare. Bioessence Hydra. This thing's pretty cool. It's one of the few Hydras that comes into play with a base power and toughness. Most of them are 0/0s. So it's good in any sort of +1/+1 counter strategy or like a Super Friends deck, because it gets a +1/+1 counter for each loyalty counter on planeswalkers you control. And whenever you plus your planeswalkers, or actually add loyalty counters, so through proliferate or things like that, it also gets +1/+1 counters. So this thing gets out of hand really quickly. So for this pack, we've got a Cyclops Electromancer, an Eternal Taskmaster, and Samut, Tyrant Smasher. The Eternal Taskmaster's pretty interesting for a zombie tribal deck, and the Samut's a good sort of 4-mana haste enabler, but nothing else too exciting. For the rares, got another foil. This one is an Angrath, Captain of Chaos. Menace is nice, but not too exciting. And for the rare, Finale of Eternity. That's 2 finales. This one is pretty sweet. It's just an X black, destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X or less. So if you're running into things with kind of low toughness, you can take out a bunch of things. But if you manage to sink 10 mana or more into the X, which isn't too hard with Cabal Coffers and Urborg, you get to return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield as well, which is pretty sweet. So for uncommons in this pack, we've got Storm the Citadel, Emergence Zone, and Liliana's Triumph. Both Liliana's Triumph and Emergence Zone are kind of interesting. Liliana's Triumph is a 2-mana instant speed edict effect that also makes an opponent discard a card if you control Liliana, which is kind of sweet. Emergence Zone is a colorless producing land that you can pay 1 and sack it so that you can cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So that can be kind of fun, depending on what deck you put it in. In the rare slot, we have another foil. This one is a Sky Theater Strix, which is a 2/1 for 2 with flying. But the rare, we have Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. Vivian's really cool. Kind of want to put her into some mono green decks, just because for 3 mana, she sits around at 4 loyalty, but you can cast your creature spells as though they had flash, which can be very powerful in green decks when you don't have a lot of interaction. So just like surprise blockers and things like that. So in this pack, we've got Domri's Ambush, Vizier of the Scorpion, and Bonds of Flourishing. In the rare slot, we have Karn, the Great Creator. I really like Karn. I'm very excited for it. As someone who enjoys playing a lot of artifact themes decks, this gives you a one-sided null rod effect that you can kind of put in that also helps you sort of blow up your opponent's lands and 0 drops, and lets you bring back any of your artifacts that have been exiled. I know we don't have sideboards in Commander, so the second part of his ability is not that relevant, but just bringing back, say, an Aetherflux Reservoir or something else that's been exiled can be pretty powerful. So for this pack, we've got a Merfolk Skydiver, Angrath's Rampage, and Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner. I really like Angrath's Rampage. It reminds me a little bit of Rakdos Charm. It gives you some modes, and it helps you get around things that have Indestructible, because it's a sacrifice effect. It is at sorcery speed, which means it could be better, but I think it can still see some play in some black-red decks. At the rare slot, we have Ignite the Beacon. Search your library for up to 2 Planeswalker cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Atraxidex will like this. And for my last pack, we've got another Domri's Ambush, an Invade the City, and Teo, the Shield Mage. Nothing too exciting. You could probably play an Invade the City as an emergency creature in a spells deck, just because it makes you amass X, where X is the number of instant sorcery cards in your graveyard. But other than that, not too fancy. In the rare slot, we have a Dread Horde Arcanist. So not only this is a cool card that lets you recur instants and sorceries from your graveyard, also one of the more relevant parts in CDH is it blocks Tymna.
Okay, so for our first pack, we're going to start with the uncommons. We got Bleeding Edge, Grateful Apparition, and Angrath, Captain of Chaos. Now, a lot of these proliferate cards that they've printed are just really objectively strong, and I think that Grateful Apparition is not an exception to that. Anything that has a repeatable, easy to activate proliferate ability, I think is going to make a splash at least somewhere. Even this thing just being a flying 1/1, like it'll get in for a couple damage, put a couple counters on things, and I think that's a good return for 2 mana. And our rare in this pack is Solar Blaze. So this is like kind of a board wipe. It's not quite Wrath of God. In butt heavy metas, it's not going to be quite as good, but it could be fine. Okay, so for our second pack's uncommons, we're going to start off with Gavriel, Rogue Shadow Mage. We got Bond of Revival, and finally Storm the Citadel. I actually kind of like Gavriel, mostly because I think his art is really sweet, but even him just being like a rack effect, where he benefits off of your opponents being hellbent or even heckbent, I think that he's totally fine for the type of strategy like Pox or whatever that you would want this kind of effect in. I think it's definitely worthwhile. And for the rare, we have Single Combat. So I've opened 2 board wipes so far. This one's actually pretty notable in that it prevents your opponents from rebuilding the turn after you cast it, because it is a sorcery, so the main sort of downside is your opponents can still try to do something, but it prevents your opponents from casting creatures and planeswalkers, so you can kind of untap without too many things in play, and then go from there. Okay, so for pack 3, let's start it off with Rescuer Sphinx, then Challenger Troll, and Ral's Outburst. I don't think any of these are making waves anytime soon, so let's just go to the rare here. Oh, we have Kithian Blackblade. Oh, sorry, did I say Kithian? I meant Gideon. I think that this card is just really, really strong, especially in standard formats. I don't know exactly how powerful it'll be in Commander, but I think that a 3-mana 4/4 with essentially indestructible has to be playable somewhere. I think there are probably some aggressive white decks that would utilize this effect to great effect. Okay, pack 4. We got Jaya, Venerated Fire Mage, Challenger Troll, again, and Sunblade Angel. I don't think any of these are going to make waves either. Sunblade Angel being kind of a better Sarah Angel is fine, not good. But for the rare, hopefully it's better than that. The Elder Spell. I really like the fact that in the set where they decided to print a ton of Planeswalkers, they also printed a really efficient answer to a ton of Planeswalkers. So even in, if you have a meta that utilizes a lot of Planeswalkers, then this is a shoe-in for your deck. If you have a deck that utilizes a lot of Planeswalkers, then this is a shoe-in too, because you can eat a bunch of the ones that aren't useful and pump up 1 to ult it. I just think it's really flavorful, pretty powerful, very compact, and worth playing. Moving on to pack 5, we have Nissa's Triumph, Heartwarming Redemption, and Ral's Outburst. For our rare, we have Ral Storm's Conduit, so we have him and his angsty side. I think that Ral is really cool. I think that the fact that he kind of goes infinite with one fork effect is really neat. I don't think he's maybe that playable. He doesn't do a whole lot other than that, but I think he's a combo piece for sure. And then for the rare, this one actually has a foil. Let's see. So we have a foil, Ob Nixilis' Cruelty. I think this card is kind of cool. It's kind of Dismember, but worse. But anyway. And for the rare, Finale of Devastation. I think objectively the coolest finale. It gives your creatures +X/+X if you can cast this for 10. And I think in green decks, that's super easy. The fact that you can search your library or graveyard for a creature and it's not color gated like Green Sun Zenith, I think this card is insane. So moving on, we got, for the uncommons, we have Sunblade Angel, Dovin's Veto, and Nahiri Storm of Stone. I think it goes without saying that Dovin's Veto is by far the strongest card in this pack. I haven't even seen the rare yet, but I'm pretty confident. For the rare, we got Mizium Tank. Yeah, Dovin's Veto is the best card. All right, I'm going to start with Vraska Swarm's Eminence as our first uncommon for this pack, followed up by Bond of Insight and Bond of Discipline. This is a very bond-heavy pack. And for our rare, we have Oath of Kaya. All right, and for our last pack here, I think we had some pretty good pulls. Maybe we can round it out with a really good final pack. We're going to start it off with Chandra's Triumph. We have Augur of Bolus and Firemind Vessel. I think that Augur of Bolus is really sweet. It's proved its worth in Pauper and just in various standard decks. I think it's just a good value creature. And for the rare here, we have Nissa, who shakes the world. She's kind of cool because she's a one-sided Mana Flare effect for forests. Then she has a bunch of other text, but the Mana Flare effect is really cool.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Spike Feeders on YouTube. If you like this content and you want to see more, make sure you click subscribe. If you love this content, click on the link to our Patreon. Every dollar helps us create more videos like this.